Okay, it's time for popped or flopped. So we can check out the last week, and they look like they didn't do so well. We have 28 years later. It has made $31 billion worldwide. Okay. And that's it. None of the other movies even made it on the list. I mean, look, Dead Man's Wire, All You Need Is Kill, Charlie the Wonderdog, Night Patrol, and then The Choral. The Choral also with Ralph Fiennes, I believe is way down here or didn't even get on the list, which means like they got rid of it, took it out of the theater or something, because I'm pretty sure that the theaters are definitely being very picky. If the first like Friday night there's like half of the theater fills up, they allow that, so there's some reviews. But if the second showing seemingly like has 8 people or something, they get rid of the movie and they put something else in because they need to make money. And if the movie theaters or the studios aren't giving the theaters things to attract people to come in, and apparently they make money off concessions, apparently, so they don't make money off the movie, so they need movies to get people in. If right now the theater movies, like Tron, Ares, or Avatar, like the real movies that utilize the speakers and everything, if there's not a lot of those, then essentially people are seeing movies that, yeah, they could see them at home on Netflix, but some people don't have any of those streaming services. But right now, it has to be that the only movies that are there at the theater are these, like the top ones. They're not wasting a theater on a movie like these that don't make any money. They need, I guarantee you most theaters will have Avatar, Fire and Ash in at least like 3 or 4 main theaters, the standard ones, and then IMAX, and then 4DX. That's a lot of theaters already. And if the point of them is to make money, they're not going to waste the theater for other ones, like Dust Bunny, they got rid of, I'm assuming. Night Patrol, Charlie the Wonderdog. These movies didn't hit. And I'm sure they went by ticket sales and they said, hey, the second showing or the third showing has like 2 people. And they said, okay, that's it. We're going to cancel it and we're going to put Avatar in there because we need more people. We need to get more money, basically, So that's my theory with this because, look at it. None of the movies made it. 28 years later, The Bone Temple was the only one that had a chance, right? You have to see it for the story, The same with Greenland 2. You had to see it to wrap up the story, right? But it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like, hey, it was a prank, by the president of Mars, right? Or whatever. Or an alien race or something. So it was like simple and it should have been groundbreaking. Like the 28 years later movie, The Bone Temple, seems like Dr. Kelson is going to discover the cure, which means it's the end of the movie, right? There's no more movie. So they have to decide if that's the best choice is, hey, Dr. Kelson discovers the cure. Well, there's not going to be a 28 decades later, and there's not going to be a 28 centuries later movie or whatever. Or I don't know what the next one's going to be. But if they're going to end it, then he finds, by finding the cure, there's no more movie. So I don't know, but this would be the last 28 years later, possibly. But again, yeah, this is the only movie that you'd want to see, really. Utopia 2, there's nothing to really compete. At this point, everybody has seen Zootopia 2. You know what I mean? The Housemaid is still going strong, which is interesting. Marty Supreme, Primate, and that's it. Anaconda, I think, is dumb. The SpongeBob movie didn't hit. It's not really Christmassy or wintry, I guess. I don't know. Greenland 2 wasn't amazing. And that's it. Song Sung Blue, David, Hamnet, and Madagascar. If you have never seen it, you can go see it. But look, it's in 1,000 theaters, and that's it. Here's the Choral there. It made $7 million so far. Out of all of these, it would be 20 years later, made $31 million. Then the Choral with $7 million. Okay. Then Dead Man's Wire with Pennywise, Skarsgård. It made $1 million. That is so bizarre. All you need is kill. The next one is Charlie the Wonderdog, which made 620. Didn't even make $1 million with Owen Wilson. And yeah, that is very strange. There's the 28 years later, 31 million, and no budget, of course. We can read a few new reviews if there are any. There's 207. It says, let's see, this one is January 18th, so yesterday. 9 out of 10. If you're squeamish, close your eyes during the barn scene, but do watch the remainder of the scene. Oh my God. Okay. I lead with that because my wife and daughter checked out of the cinema during that scene, but there was nothing like that in the remainder of the movie. I wish I had to have stayed, but I understand their decision. This is a violent series. I thought The Bone Temple was better than the previous 28 years movie with a much more satisfying ending that sets up perfectly for the next movie. Oh, so they're going to make another one. I will not say why because I do not want to provide spoilers, but if you are a 28 fan, you must see this movie and prepare for the next movie. Still see it if you are not a 28 fan, but watch a YouTube of the previous movies so you know what is going on. I only give it a 9 instead out of a 10 because of that barn scene was over the top gore in my opinion. It must be like an amputation scene or something, or like a torture scene by zombies. You know what I mean? Something like that. I hate when they do something like that, when it's like, it takes you out. It's too distracting. You know what I mean? Like, it's to get a point across, but then it's like, it goes too far, and it's like, okay, this is weird. Like it gets too far. Goes too far. This one also from yesterday, 9 out of 10. Everything I wanted in a horror film. This movie was honestly one of the much better made horror films compared to what has been made in the past few years. While there were some comedic moments that can ruin the film for fans strictly wanting tense, squeamish moments. Oh, it had the right amount of gore where it made me want to look away from the big screen, but I just couldn't look away due to how visually appealing this movie was, filmed as well. Not only the horror, but the story that was written around Samson and Dr. Kelson was something that I was pleasantly surprised by, including how in-depth they go with Samson. Jimmy Crystal was by far a good villain considering how much my friend hated him, and he is also played by the amazing actor Jack O'Connell, who played Remick in Sinners, which I had not realized until after the movie. That's cool. Well, it looks like it's getting good reviews. 10 out of 10, what a wild experience. Terrifying entertainment, 9 out of 10. 2 out of 10, we all miss Danny Boyle. Coming from the last 8 years later film by Danny Boyle, filled with original creative choices, amazing soundtrack, and an actual story of Spike and a genuine protagonist, this film was a total letdown. The script of this film was probably the worst I've seen in a while. Everything was over-explained to the audience. That is because of this new thing called second screen viewing, where it's required that the dialogue or the plot is recited multiple times in a movie. So when you're looking at your phone, you hear it, so you can still get the movie. So that's why this is literally catering too much to the viewer, and it's ruining the filmmaking part. They need to do what they do with like Kill Tony or whatever. They give you put your phone in a bag or something, so that it's secured and then you don't have distraction. It continues saying film should show, not tell. And all this one did was show and tell, and then tell some more. The soundtrack fell into cliches of a typical horror film stuff. Unlike the original choice of Young Father's The Last Film, what? First half of the film was just gore, and then second, nothing really. There was no balance of it, no spreading it out, no harmony, and above all, no real story between anyone. Spike's choices didn't align with the character we got to know in the last film at all. Jimmy was one-dimensional, so was Dr. Kelson. The characters were flat and predictable. Terrible film, really. What a disappointment of directing. Well, I'm not going to read any more, but that's pretty interesting stuff. The second movie that made the most was this, the Choral, that made $7 million, okay? Which still isn't really amazing, but I mean, it's also starring this Ralph Fiennes guy, which is very interesting. He's literally in 2 movies at the same time. How weird. 32 reviews, 6 out of 10. Less would have been more. 7 out of 10 more than Ralph Fiennes. World War One. I'm not going to read all of it. World War I is the backdrop for this charming story of a small manufacturing town in Yorkshire, England, which has lost most of its male chorus members to the army. The annual performance is supposed to be Bach's Saint Matthew Passion, but since Bach was German and this is World War I, something else must be found. The town alderman, Bernard Duxbury, needs to find a new director as the old one was conscripted. They recruit Dr. Henry Guthrie, Ralph Fiennes, who was living in Germany, who is not particularly patriotic. It is also generally known that he is gay, which was a crime in England back then. Wow, since Bach cannot be performed, he changes the performance to the British composer Edward Elgar's The Dream of Gerontius. Interesting, all right. Effectively weaves the war into a script. Pretty cool. Well, while Fiennes is, of course, the star, the film is stolen by the secondary actors, most of whom are members of the chorus. Particularly appealing are the young members who are always chasing skirts. A black performer, Mary, is wonderful as a member of the Salvation Army who falls for one of the lads. Stealing the show, though, is the Mia boyfriend, Clyde, missing in action. Clyde, Jacob Dudman, who returns missing his right arm. It turns out that he has a stunning tenor voice and he becomes a star of the production. The final performance of Gerontius is wonderful and very emotional. The end of the film is poignant as a train leaves the town with a number of the conscripted chorus members waving the family and friends on the platform. It's clear that many of them will not return. Oh, this guy saw this at the Palm Springs IFF, and the audience received the film very strongly. Although the nearly 2-hour running length dragged in some spots, it is definitely worth seeing. Yeah, the cocky 2 hours is intense. Or 2.5 hours. Yeah, so 10 out of 10. This movie is absolutely beautiful. 9 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Well, that's good to know. Looks like this one, I mean, for some contrast for the movie and to see, you know, I guess a contrast in acting of Ralph Fiennes is good. The next one is Dead Man's Wire that made the most, technically, with $1 million. Unfortunate, but I mean, it's starring this Skarsgård guy, so who does Pennywise, and yeah, it's just kind of probably just to showcase his acting range and put him in something else. 8 out of 10, lots of it has 22 reviews, not that many. 8 out of 10, lots of unsympathetic characters here. I really liked Bill Skarsgård's depiction of the determined and unhinged Tony Caritas. Just as he seemed likable and you begin to root for him, he seems to enjoy what he's doing a bit too much. Al Pacino is pure evil, and all I could think of is, so I'm the bad guy? Coleman Domingo is smooth as ice and cooler than the other side of the pillow. I laughed too often at situations that weren't funny, just sad. Interesting. Well, 8 out of 10, skill in the cinematic arts. 2 out of 10, nap time hero. Maybe I should read that one. If you need a good nap, watch this movie. Besides the boring pace of the film, the story was not interesting or frightening. It is more of an attempt at the bad guy is the hero movie. However sick and twisted the idea may be. The cinematography is good and the low-key 70s vibe might appeal to some, but the idea of it turning a person who snapped past the breaking point to a likable, cool hero as he kidnaps and holds at gunpoint and makes stupid demands to police and authorities is not worth wasting your time watching. And that is probably a true review of this movie. The movie's probably entertaining, but this is probably true. Good one to stream. Glad I got to see this wild crime comedy. 8 out of 10. A tense, tragic comic thriller with an engaging performance by Skarsgård and scathing indictment of predatory capitalism. The 4 out of 10 sleeper. Well, reviews are all over the place on this movie, so. But it made them third most with 1 million. And then next is the Charlie the Wonderdog movie with an unbelievable $620,000 gross. Unbelievable. With Owen Wilson at the helm, this movie still didn't do it. 7 reviews, 4 out of 10. I had no idea what was going on. This movie is terrible. Even Owen Wilson couldn't save it. No characters are really established, and the plot seems to constantly change. They couldn't decide who the villain was, nor what Wonderdog's mission was. I don't think I will ever watch this movie again. It was just really terrible. It's like they didn't write the story out, and they just made the story up as they were filming, which is really hard to do with animation. Just randomly make it 1 out of 10 so bad. This movie is so awful. The script is awful and seems written by AI. The plot was ridiculous and it just wasn't charming or funny. There are several really gross scenes and a lot of really bad behavior I don't think should be in a kid's movie. A waste of time. I wouldn't recommend for anyone to see, let alone a child. 2 out of 10, a brightly packaged kids movie with a gentle concept that lacks heart, originality, and emotional payoff. 4 out of 10, disappointing and gross. What? A movie aimed at children should not have gross out moments. I would say gross out humor, but it wasn't just funny, it was disgusting. There was an alien prince who delighted in torturing his would-be pets. The plot seemed to be a series of tropes strung together with attempts at satire and weak attempts at mocking social media. I would not recommend this for anyone, especially children. None of the children in this audience giggled or cheered. It was that bad. 2 out of 10, all the ingredients out of the soul. 2 out of 10, family tropes, little heart. And then here's a fake one probably. Owen Wilson doesn't disappoint. 10 out of 10. Wow. Let's just read it. Charlie the Wonderdog is everything you'd hope for in a family adventure. It's funny, visually stunning, and carried by a pitch-perfect performance by Owen Wilson. Wilson brings Charlie to life with his signature charm, delivering a vocal performance that's equal parts heartfelt and hilarious. From the very first scene, you feel the sincerity and optimism he infuses into Charlie's character, turning a simple animated pup into a hero you generally root for. Must watch with the fam. What do you believe? 1 really good review or a bunch of similar bad reviews? 6 similar reviews versus 1 really good review. Wow. Charlie the Wonderdog. Unbelievable. What a waste. Next is All You Need Is Kill, which has made $520,000. Unbelievable. It's a Japan anime stuff, right? So it probably didn't have a chance anyways, but we can read some reviews and see if it has an audience or not. If it has fans who like Ray's Arc, whatever, was apparently like a cash grab. It was a summary of the previous seasons with a little bit of new stuff, enough that the fans were disappointed. This one is 7 reviews, 6 out of 10. Strange in a good way. Groundhog's Day revisited anime style. Yeah, this has a trippy story. They're stuck in a time loop during an alien invasion. Pretty weird. The heroine, Rita, is a loner and pretty much a buzzkill until she meets up with Keiji, a boy who is your basic computer nerd who uses his smile as defense from the omnipresent bullies in his life. Together, they struggle to save the world from a plant-based invader that seems harmless until it begins spitting out seeds that become killer flowers. Part save the world and part odd couple. This story has unlikely heroes and an improbable ending. I have to say I liked more than I expected. 8 out of 10. Fun movie, but too short for its own good. I watched this movie with no idea it was based off a manga. By that metric, it is a totally different story and a terrible adaptation. As a standalone film, the animation was good and the story was solid, although a bit too short to flesh out the rest of the world and anything that isn't Rita. If you're a fan of the manga, this movie shares very little with it besides character names. But if you want just a fast-paced action movie, then you end up liking it. Really interesting. Yeah, I mean, this might be fun. Unfortunately, they're going to get rid of it at the theater, so better see it quick. And lastly is the, I say, terribly timed, like, released. It could have been out in October. The movie called Night Patrol, which has made $300,000. $300,000. That's it. A median, a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom house somewhere, you know, with a yard, maybe a pool and room for a trampoline and a covered, probably a garage, if not a covered carport or something. And it made that much. And this has Justin Long in it and CM Punk and someone else. 9 reviews, okay? 5 out of 10 stars. Good movie. Could quite easily have been great. I really wanted to love this movie. It looked like it would be in the same ballpark as, for example, Day Shift, which I really liked, and I really like Phil Brooks, CM Punk, in Girl on the Third Floor, and also the movie. He's good in the wrestling franchise, but I really liked him in movies. He's just awesome and fun, including in this movie. But why the strange visuals? It destroyed the whole movie. It could easily have been so much better. They probably wouldn't have to spend more money, or at least not as much. A better director could have could turn this movie into a great one instead of a good one. 10 out of 10, great movie. We thoroughly love this movie. Do not listen to review snobs. Go into this without watching the trailer. And it's even better going in blind. All you need to know is it is in the horror genre, and if you are a horror fan, you will enjoy this. I also found it to have some comedic moments, which was a bonus for me. This is a fun movie. All the actors did a fantastic job, and this movie deserves a much higher rating than the current mid 5.2. Hopefully the ratings climb higher because it really does deserve more credit. And then 4 out of 10, what did I just watch? 6 out of 10, Night Patrol has teeth. Even if it doesn't always sink them in. Starting off the year strong with a contender for the worst film of the year. Well, there you go. That is unfortunate. That is the movies that are out now, and those are how they turned out. And here is the Rotten Tomatoes results, I guess, the ratings that they have. 93%. But then 89, I guess that's good. 90, yeah, whatever. Primate, 80%. 70, wow, it's actually not bad. That's kind of funny. Then Dead Man's Wire. I mean, it has kind of an okay rating on here. Night Patrol, 54%. Holy crap. Greenland 2, the critics hated it, but it's a good movie to watch. It's a fun movie to watch. What else? We Bury the Dead, 40. Wow. The critics liked it, but the audience hates it. I don't understand that. Avatar is doing well, I guess. And Marty Supreme was good. Is This Thing On? Song Sung Blue. Anaconda. The critics hated it, but it's a fun movie to watch. What in the world? And then SpongeBob, 68. Well, look, that's a good rating, I think. That is so weird. Bizarre. All right, well, that's it for this popped or flopped. Those are the movies turned out from last week. Comment down below if you think any of them, if you saw any of them and what you think. Thursday's video will be these movies. Mercy, Return to Silent Hill. Again, they could have just put it out in Halloween. I don't know why. And then The Testament of Ann Lee. And then all these other limited releases. Oh, and then a UFC, Gaethje versus Pimblett. Cool. So yeah, those are that will be on Thursday's show. All that being said, I will see you in the next video.